Radio.
What up, everybody? This is Skunk with Rockstar Radio. I'm sitting here with the legendary Tom Wood. He's a graphics designer for rock stars all across the country.
I just want to say, hey, Skunk, thanks for coming out to the farm and doing this interview. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. Actually, you were at the float last year. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the interview, and I got to meet the beautiful Madison that's going to be recording this for us today. So let's get to it.
Hell yeah, man. Well, first and foremost, Rockstar Radio was started and formed here in Arkansas, and like we prided ourselves originally on being an Arkansas-based business, trying to help support Arkansas-based industry, because Arkansas just ain't really on the map. We got Walmart,
Yeah.
you know, and anything bigger than Walmart, it ain't bigger than Walmart.
Right.
So where were you born and raised, man?
Well, I was born in Batesville, Arkansas, which is about an hour south of here. Now, my parents are from here. In fact, this farm is 7 generations of woods that's just been handed down one after another. My grandfather sold this farm when we were living in Batesville, and then my dad's dream was to buy it back, and he did. So when I came back I was working at Starter at the time, and it just started Meridian Design Works, and was able to buy this property, which attached to our, historical family farm. So
Right. Well, that's beautiful, man.
yeah, it's
7 generations.
7 generations, all the way back to I think it was 1895.
1895. What was land going for back then?
I think it was I don't know, about 75 cents an acre or something like that.
75 cents an acre. You're coming out like a striped bandit right now.
Yeah, not too bad.
So, well, and so you went to Batesville. You were born in Batesville, and then you were kind of raised up. And
Yeah.
This is your family farm.
Right. Yeah, I was raised on a cattle farm. I was born on a cattle farm. That's all I knew growing up. My school was called Court Charlotte. It's been consolidated into Cedar Ridge now, but at the time my class was 17 kids. My graduating class was 18 kids. So there was nobody coming in or going out, and it was a little B school, very poor, and and all of my classmates were like brothers and sisters as far growing up.
Right. Well,
And,
when there's only 18 of y'all, you probably got more cousins than that.
Yeah, I do. But luckily I was in Batesville and not Mammoth Spring, because they actually would have been cousins at the same time. So
when you're going through high school and everything, was your plan and your direction, I'm going to go into the graphics art world? Because I'm not going to call you old, but you look like you're older than graphics art.
I mean, there's always been graphic design. If you look back in the 50s and 60s, it was graphic design, and Frank Frazetta was a huge influence on me, even when I was 8 or 9 years old, and he was doing album cover. Actually, he was doing fantasy novels, but Molly Hatchet had the bright idea of looking into his fantasy artwork and using that for their cover in their 1979 album, Molly Hatchet.
Worth it.
So when I seen that as a 9-year-old, of course, I knew what I wanted to do. But actually, I've been illustrating pictures and selling them when I was in first grade. I was doing pictures of the Hulk and selling them for $0.25 a piece on the bus ride home after school.
You were born and raised a hustler.
Yeah, I guess so. Actually, it wasn't even about the money. It was really about just, I guess, the attention of it, because once I kind of got identified as the class artist, everyone would, the attention that came with that was kind of, I liked it and wanted to stand out in some fashion, like all of us do, and I just sort of stuck with that. And then it was one fateful day in first grade where we had done this illustration of this undersea picture, and my teacher was so excited about it, she stopped the entire class, brought me to the front of the classroom, made everyone look at what I had done. And of course the first graders, and they're like, "You don't give a shit." And,
Right. Ooh, your fish.
yeah, his fish aren't figure eights with a flat tail. And I'd done seaweed and shit like that. Anyway, she was not happy with their response, so she drugged me into the second grade class, made their class stop what they were doing, and look at this picture, which was my brother's. I had an older brother, Kelly, who was in second grade at the time.
This sounds like an ass whooping.
Yeah, it's so yeah. Anyway, she went in there, and I was like, "Oh, I really like this attention. And I told her that day that I'm going to be an artist for a living when I grow up. And after that day in first grade, that was really the only path for me. There was never any plan B.
Now, mind you, making these business decisions at 6 years old,
Uh-huh.
while living in Arkansas, raising cows.
Yes.
All right,
That's a weird path.
You understand that this is
Connecting
going to be a
those
hard
two
road.
dots. Yeah.
You know, like, because you have all the talent in the world as an artist, and in this industry especially, talent goes only so far.
Right.
And then there's like the people you know, and then the people that you're raised around and where you're born at. And you have a lot of tribulations when you're in Arkansas as a cow farmer wanting to be an artist.
That's true.
I mean, you already mentioned once you had an older brother. I have an older brother. He beat the hell out of me for having long hair.
Yeah. Well, me and my brother fought every day. I mean, we physically fought and threw each other through the sheetrock and just beat the shit out of each other on a daily basis. And I look back on that and I wouldn't change it now. I think that was, really
You're right.
formative years as far as, standing up for yourself and, wanting to not let yourself get pushed around. And it was good for me.
Yeah, and it's always healthy to know how to take a punch.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you graduated high school in Batesville.
I did, but it was as far as trying to figure out how to get from I want to be an artist. How do you be an artist in rural Arkansas? So my first paying job was in 11th grade. I started doing political illustrations for Batesville's newspaper, the Batesville Guard. So I was doing all the little,
Now, is that knocking door to door and asking if you can do that? Is that like, are these people calling you up saying, we need you to draw for us?
No, that was my math teachers, because, of course, when he was lecturing, I would be drawing sketches, and he would say, if you're going to just do that in my fucking class, why don't you do something that you can get paid for? And he was very politically connected, and he said, why don't you do something like this? So I sketched it out, and he loved it, and he said, take it to the Batesville Guard and let them take a look at it. And they loved it, and then they were paying me $25, which is the most I ever made on an illustration at that time for these, political illustrations for the newspaper. But my plan was, if I could graduate, I was a big comic book buff, so my plan was to go do comic books for Marvel. That was the only plan that I had.
Seems like a good plan.
At the time. I didn't want to do...
Sounds fun.
It would sound like it was, that would be an amazing career, but I didn't want to do each panel because it just looked tedious. But if you looked at like Savage Sword of Conan, which had these amazing painted covers by Joe Jusko, who's one of my, idols, that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do all the fucking tedious shit. I wanted to do just the cover pieces. So, and especially after I'd seen Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer and all of his other pieces, I went out and bought all of Robert E. Howard's chronology of Conan just for the covers from Frazetta, and that's when I decided I wanted to do fantasy artwork. But how do you get to do that when you're still that's the question.
You're still on the side of a mountain in Arkansas.
So I I graduated in 1988 and went to University of Arkansas and took all their design courses, illustration
Out of Fayetteville?
courses. Out of Fayetteville.
Out of Fayetteville?
Out of Fayetteville. So yeah, I was a Razorback for 2.5 years, and then my dad, who was a USDA food inspector as well as a cattle rancher, the man that trained him, this is where it gets really weird, like fate really steps in. The man that trained him in Louisiana 25 years before that happened to be coming through Batesville, and they seen each other and got to talking, and he said, "What's your boys do?" And so my dad told him that I was in Fayetteville and he was going to be an artist, and he said, "Well, that's strange because my boy is the head of production at Champion Awards in Memphis, and they do screen printing and screen printing design for T-shirts. If he wants a job, let's put them together." And then I went down there, interviewed. They hired me that day as assistant art director. I was 19 years old at the time.
No experience.
No experience.
But you knew how to draw.
I knew how to draw, and and I knew how to work.
What was your responsibilities at that job?
Well, that was doing original illustrations, making them camera ready and production ready, and getting it ready to go on to press to print T-shirts.
Okay.
Or hats or whatever kind of apparel.
So this is the beginning. This is the start. I'm producing art that somebody is going to sell.
Right. And even all the stuff that I learned in college, even early in high school, was nothing compared to when you're doing it 10 hours a day, which that's what I was doing. I mean, I was working about 90 hours a week at Champion because they put me on salary. They hired me as assistant art director, told me to learn everything I could from the art director, and within 4 weeks they fired the art director and made me art director. So I was a 19-year-old art director at that point. Not because I was good, but because I was getting paid half of what he was.
I was going to say because you were cheap.
Exactly. Because they were, they were.
And you have a dream
cheap.
That you're chasing, and as
Right.
long as you're chasing a dream, that makes it easy to do 90 hours a week.
Absolutely. And after I moved out there, as much shit as they piled on me, coming back and telling Andrew Wood, Dad, I couldn't hack it was not part of the equation. I was just going to have to live through it. And I did. For
As
like
a cow
3 years.
farmer in Arkansas, man, you
he
really, I
would have
can't hack it.
understood.
I can't hack it with a pencil, Dad. Like,
Yeah.
he's going to laugh at you.
Exactly.
So, well, man, that's awesome, dude. And so Champion, that's like a major clothing brand today still. Like Walmart sells that
Yeah.
in bulk
Yep.
all across the world. How long did you stay on with Champion? I mean, is that a...
Well, I was there for about 2.5 years, and Champion made the mistake of they got into the licensed sports, and they launched their own college license brand called First Team.
Right.
So that gave me the ability to start doing college teams, the college mascot illustrations and stuff like that. And I had done this really cool line based off comic books that got the attention of Salem Sportswear out of New Hampshire. And at the time, Salem Sportswear was the biggest licensed sports company in the world. They started back in the 80s by doing caricatures of Larry Bird and the Celtics and Magic Johnson and all that period, and
Okay.
made millions of dollars. So their company grew and grew, and then they got bought out by Fruit of the Loom, and then that's when they wanted to continue to expand. And then I had done some contract work for them through Champion, so they knew who I was because they had to deal with me. And when they seen my artwork, they said, "Would you be interested in coming to work with us?" And it was got into a bidding war between them and a company called Liquid Blue, who was doing all the Grateful Dead stuff at the time.
Sounds like they lost.
Yeah, they did lose. And not because of the money as much as because, it was because of the money.
It always is. In the grand scheme of things, it always really is, man.
But they had this amazing staff of some of the most talented artists, and I wanted to work with those guys, even more so than doing the Grateful Dead stuff, which looked really fun. Just doing the licensed sports stuff and being able to be exposed to all these other talented professionals
Right.
in my industry, that's what I wanted to do, because I just wanted to keep getting better.
Yeah, because Grateful Dead stuff, I mean, what are you going to get? 20,000 people that want to hang out with you that don't have money?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of do that now, but
Yeah, but you chose to.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
It wasn't a career path. So, like, the conversation, it was doing that thing, and I do have a big name drop that happens right around there, because you talked about getting into the college side of things, and like you're making these bid wars and stuff. And one piece of information I was able to find out about you is you've done something with Michael Jordan.
Right.
And this is the year of the 23 right here. He called this year a long time ago and said this would be the greatest year in the world, man. That's why he put it on his back. Everything else doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's okay. The whole connection starts like this, because I was at Salem Sportswear. I was doing licensed sports, but also I was doing a lot of their hot market stuff. And hot market means anytime somebody wins a championship, anytime somebody World Series or gets traded, and there's an opportunity to sell shirts into that industry. So I started doing that for Salem Sportswear because they had locker room. Well, Starter came along in 1995.
Starter's a big one.
Yeah, Starter was the big one. They came along and they had money and they wanted locker room. So they paid millions and millions to get locker room rights, but they didn't have a staff to supply it. So they recruited me. They sent their headhunters in and recruited me. I was 24 at the time, and brought me in as art director of their special events and hot markets. So, that was just the perfect time because Jordan was killing it at the time. So I got to do all the artwork for all the championship graphics, like when Jordan put on the shirts right after the game and had the hat on. Those are all my graphics.
Every time.
Every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
For how long?
For 3 years in a row.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I had a staff of 8, and they did a lot of the other stuff like the division champs and stuff like that, and I would direct them. But when it came to what's Jordan going to wear,
Right,
that's
Jordan.
mine. You bastards, just back off. This is all mine. So,
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I don't blame you one bit. I mean, you can score more points in a year than Michael Jordan, but you're never going to be greater than Michael Jordan was.
No.
And it has nothing to do with a basketball. This guy, I mean, he was a superstar. As anything he did, he was a superstar. He could suck at baseball, and people would still buy tickets to watch
because he
him
was
play
a class act. I mean, he was humble, and maybe not on the court, but as far as the way he portrayed himself to the public,
he was like a human being.
Yeah, and he was a great role model to kids. I mean, I don't see anyone else even coming close to this guy today.
Not from my era.
I agree.
Maybe the next era, we got some beautiful things to look at. You know, kids were eating Tide Pods just a couple years ago. So I'm ready to see what the next generation of heroes look like. You might be one of them guys, Tom Wood. There's artists out there that don't know how to make money being an artist.
Right.
And, you know, that live in Arkansas especially. So, like, you're a rising source that it gives people the ability to know that they can draw something and someday they can put a shirt on Michael Jordan.
Right.
And like, that's a big deal to
It's all
people.
possible. And, you know, it's just a matter of how far you're willing to go. What are you willing to sacrifice to see that dream come true?
What's your biggest sacrifice?
Well, moving from Memphis to New Hampshire, because I had no relatives up there. I was 23 years old at the time. I knew nobody. It was scary, you know, and, you know, I remember living on my apartment, just laying on the carpet. I had no furniture. And by the time I got through paying my bills, I had $11 for the week to live off of.
Being a hot-ass artist still wasn't paying the bills.
It was not paying the bills. And luckily for me, what Salem was doing at the time was they would freelance to their own artists, especially caricatures. But you had to know how to caricature, which I did not. But I learned very quickly. If I wanted those $400 gig side jobs, and I could pile them up, then I needed to learn how to caricature. So I learned quickly, and then that's when I started doing it. And before long, I was, you know, they were giving me all the cool caricatures to do. So that's how it all started. And then I took all that stuff and went to Starter and made them a lot of money with it.
Hell yeah! Which in turn they turned around and blessed you back, right?
They did. For 3 years. I got to do, you know, it was just this dream job where I got to do all the stuff that I wanted to. We made a ton of money. Unfortunately for Starter, their shoes, their shirts, and their hats started bleeding money. I mean, they were hot, but they weren't hot anymore. So Starter closed its doors. I could see the stock at Starter starting to drop in the late 90s. And that's when I decided to start Meridian Design Works, which is my own ad agency support company. So there were so many ad agencies like DDB and TLP and Alcone that were in the Connecticut area, because Starter was in New Haven, Connecticut. That I was able to start getting ad agency jobs, which meant Pepsi money, Frito-Lay money, and NASCAR money, which they don't care. They didn't care how much they fucking paid. Just get it done, and get it done in a few days, and we'll give you whatever you want. We don't even argue. Just, you would have to submit one estimate, and they would just say, we don't care, just do it. And I was like, this is the next evolutionary step in the path. Even though it was very distant from the fantasy artwork that I wanted to do, this is what was paying the bills, and it seemed like these were the doors that were opening to me at the time. You just have to keep walking through that next door.
And that's the thing about chasing your dream is that the best you can actually do is really to do your dream, which is to draw. Now, you're not drawing pictures of what you wanted to draw pictures of, but you're drawing.
Exactly.
You're turning art into money. You are doing the thing.
And that's key, because if you look at a lot of people, they'll turn down a job because that's not what I want to do. Well, it doesn't matter what you want to do. You need to get a job where you're drawing and developing your skills all day.
Growing.
Exactly.
Because what sounds better, a kid that went to high school drawing and college drawing, or a guy that spent 25 years drawing for businesses? Who are you going to buy the picture of a battle axe from? Or a dragon from? You know, the guy that's got 35 years of time invested in being an artist makes more sense than, you know, trying to find some artist that has some unique, powerful skill. Because, especially like with art, on you went through high school. First grade was when you decided you're going to be an artist. and you carried this plan all the way through, and at 19 years old you got your first job, and it was not drawing pictures of dragons and fairies.
Exactly.
You know, and you maintained on that. And right now I think we're talking around the age of 25, 26 with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you're already 7 years invested as a professional artist. You're still not doing the thing that you wanted to do, but you're doing the thing that you had to do. And it's opening up these doors, because eventually all you have to do is have the ranch paid off, and you can draw all the dragons you want.
Right.
You know,
And that was, you know, and that was always the goal, was if I can keep doing this and bring this, and when the internet got fast enough and New Hampshire would start or closed its doors, I was able to swing over to the Meridian full time and then just deal with my professional ad agency clients, which were paying great at the time. And then when the internet got fast enough, I'm like, I don't need to do this in Connecticut. I can do this in Arkansas, and
Right.
that money goes a lot further in Arkansas than it does in Connecticut. So luckily, the people that was on this farm were getting a divorce, and they had to sell it, and it was time to make that move,
it was
because
that moment.
yeah, these places do not come up for sale every day.
No, well,
So-
they'll stay in families' generations for 7 freaking generations.
Absolutely,
That makes it hard to buy property.
it does.
So,
So it seems like fate was kind of opening, you know, showing me this path to go down. And so,
my question is now you're relying on the internet, and you're going to move to Arkansas, back home to Arkansas.
mhm.
We both know the internet didn't come here as quick as it went to Connecticut.
No, it did not. And luckily, that's why, as you can see, there's a tower up there on that hill. So I had to build that 100-foot tower just to have a connection all the way down to Thayer, Missouri, which they had wireless internet at the time. And it was extremely expensive. But that was the only path that I had. So I built this house when I moved back, and built that tower to get internet, and then I was up and running.
Hell yeah, man. So I'm going to ask you about some of your musical professional gigs, and about what time that started coming in, because you know, I ain't asked you how old you are, and I probably won't do that on camera.
Okay.
You know, but at some point there had to be a transition where you were no longer doing this to pay the bills, because it was barely scraping by.
Yeah.
And somebody was hitting you up and saying, hey, I'm going to pay you good money and you're going to have fun doing it. Where was that at?
Well, I would say it was probably around 2006. Meridian was doing really well, and back in my Salem sportswear days, when I was doing mascots for the professionals and even college, I would have to submit it to my art director, and my stuff was very aggressive. I mean, it was almost satanic. In
Right.
fact, they would even make fun of me, calling me a Satan worshiper, because all of my Duke Blue Devils or Clemson Tigers or anything came back very evil looking. So CLC or the pros would send it back and say, it's too aggressive. It's too aggressive. And so I would have to keep taming it down. And I kind of got a reputation for that. So in 2006, my creative director had left Salem Sportswear and was now with Live Nation. And she said, especially when ICP was starting to really rule at Hot Topics and stuff, she said, I know this guy who does this really aggressive stuff. I had to deal with him on a daily basis at Salem Sportswear. I think he would really bring a new look to this. So she reached out to me, and that's when I started doing work for Live Nation. Not only was it ICP at the time, it was Ozzy Osbourne, it was Kiss, it was Aerosmith, Breaking Benjamin, and Scorpions. A lot of bands that I grew up loving. So
Right, and they were, what they were doing is they were contracted into Meridian and hitting you for different things. It wasn't necessarily like, hey, we need you to design album covers. Sometimes it was marketing stints for graphic design and stuff. It wasn't necessarily, hey, you're a rock star and we're gonna have you do your RR to, you know, like how I know you as ICP, and I know that you do it all. Like it's.
mm-hmm. Well, it was
You'd be amazed at what my walls look like.
really.
Yeah, I got a lot of clowns.
That's not a bad thing. You should see the walls downstairs in my studio. But yeah, it was doing like their apparel for their tours and stuff like that. I was doing
Like
for
what
Live
they
Nation.
were wearing rather than.
Right.
Okay.
But what opened that up was I just started doing Tom Wood fantasy art on the side of Meridian. It was like a branch of Meridian where I got to do the stuff that I grew up wanting to do, which was dragons and monsters and werewolves and.
It was a division of your company not made to make profit.
Right.
Not made to make a profit.
No, it was made. Everything I did was made to make a profit. And the great thing about those pieces were it was licensing. Licensing was the key because I could do that artwork. I could retain ownership of that artwork and then sell a license to these companies where they would have permission to make T-shirts or posters or whatever, and then I get royalties paid to me back from whatever they sell. So yeah, everything done.
Yeah,
is
so
from
you
money.
went through it the right way right out the gate. You never chased a dream. You made art a job.
Right. It was a job. And, everyone's like, well, if it's a job, I don't know if I'm going to love it as much. Yeah, you will. Because if you go out and get a real job, you're going to fucking know that that's work. And if you're doing what you love every day, then you really never work a day in your life.
I've heard that 100 times in my life, and it's always a rich person sitting in a chair with a suit on saying it.
Well, it's true. Even if they're, rich white guys telling you that.
I didn't say what color they were.
I just assumed.
Yeah, that's fair. So, one of the artworks that I have hanging on my wall, it has Tom Wood painted on it and signatured on it, but it's not you.
Yes.
And I directly reached out to you to ask you if it was you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
How the hell are you going to tell me that there is two Tom Wood? Not,
I know.
Tom Wood.
Yeah, what's the odds?
That draw clowns.
I don't know who this guy is or if he's even still alive. I should reach out to this guy if he's still alive someday.
He's old. Too.
Yeah, well, if you look at those things, they were made in the late 50s or 60s.
Maybe up the one I think is a 70, like 1971, I think is written on the back of it.
Really?
Like, this guy is old as hell, man.
Well, I think when he did these pieces, and these have been sent to me for years and years. Did you do this? Did you do this? I didn't do any of those. But they were meant to be happy or cute. But for some reason,
they're
they're
creepy.
creepy. They didn't mean for them to be. Like, my stuff is intentionally creepy.
Yeah, it's edgy, but it's not creepy,
Yeah, his stuff is meant to be, I guess, happy and fluffy, but for some reason, to me, they're even creepy.
Well, realistically, it's exactly what a clown's supposed to be, man.
Yeah.
They've always been there to make people smile.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have something coming up here in a few short months that supposed to be a pretty big deal. It's got your name all over the front of it.
Really?
Really, really.
Yeah, I think I've heard of this thing.
Oh man, how many years has the float been going?
The float has been going. This will be the 4th year for the float, and it's taken on a life of its own. The first float was in 2020. Of course, everything had shut down. I was working on graphics for The Gathering at the time, which was Bizarre, which was going to be amazing. The logos, I had all the artwork done for it, and then when everything started shutting down, all of it got canceled. I don't even know if I even got paid for that artwork. Probably didn't. But anyway, once it went down, it was just this watching everyone's on my social media just complaining about how sad their life was without being able to interact with their family. I decided to let's just get together and because Arkansas, in Arkansas we don't give a shit. In fact, we really do not like being told what to do.
Right.
We'll almost do the opposite.
Just because you told us.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's distinctly Arkansan, and I know I had talked to my friend Ogre, who was working on a Juggafest because he wanted to do something along those lines, and I had decided to just, if everybody wanted to come out and socially distance and get on the river out in the open air, that might not be too bad of a deal. So I wanted to.
It's pretty easy to stay 6 feet away from people when you're camping on 100 acres.
That's right. Or canoeing, and I had this. My family has a campground that they've had since the '60s, right there on beautiful Spring River. I'm like, let's just get together and go float the river together, and that's something at least.
Right. Maybe the sunlight will burn some of the germs away.
Right. And then I met up with Ogre like a week later, and he was coming through town, and we met at the state park, and I asked him what he thought about it, and he's like, yeah, you should do this, and we should throw this in there. We need gaming and stuff like that, and music. And I'm like, yeah, they've tried the music thing before there, and my Uncle Bob just shuts it down. So that's probably not going to happen. So anyway, the first float came to pass, and everyone had a great time. And then we had our gaming. We had the Echo Side tournament. It was great. Everyone, and all 50 of us that showed up, had an amazing time. And then Ogre just kept pushing. Hey, let's see if we can do like this. A little bit of music. And I'm like, oh, it's never gonna work. And he's never, I didn't even ask. And then we got them to agree to letting us take my truck up to the upper end, and then Risk and Lots and Ice Giant, who were 3 good friends of mine, volunteered to get up in the back of that truck and perform for an hour or 2 or something like that, and everyone loved it. And we didn't cause any problems. Nobody rioted. There was, no bathrooms got tagged, and Uncle Bob was happy. So, and everyone was happy. So the next year we just kept pushing the envelope a little bit, and then the next year we had a stage, and of course we weren't even selling tickets at this point. We just come on out, and then the size of the float had doubled that year, because after COVID got lifted, the gathering was there, and I was going to just cancel the whole thing, but the outcrying from the public was like, we love the float, we want it to happen again, so we decided to just keep it that year again, and like I said, it doubled. And then on year 3, we decided to just, Ogre and I got together, and we decided to really invest in this thing, because everyone that came to it just loved it. And so it we poured a lot of money into it and a lot of time, opened up a website, sold tickets for it, went out with this idea that we were gonna get some of the biggest talent in the underground community. And luckily for us, he had some great connections in the Springfield area and all around the Mid-South area as far as local bands, and I had some great connections with ICP and all the Psychopathic, and was able to go in there, and we got Shaggy 2 Dope to headline for us last year. And
yes, you did.
yeah, and of course we had and Scum was there, and we had DJ Clay, Whitney Payton came out, and these kids, I call them kids, now Joey's old as I am, but they came out for the love of the fans. They certainly wasn't doing it for the money,
Right.
but they saw that this had potential to really turn into something fantastic, and it has. And,
yeah.
So, and then last year the show went off. It was amazing, the best show yet, and the size of the float tripled last year or more. And I think this year it's going to do the same thing.
I think it's going to double or triple. Myself is where I'm looking at. I've already been talking. I know that there's 25 people that are coming with us that
Wow.
didn't come last year, that didn't hear about it last year. And I mean, and that's the lowest of numbers.
Holy cow.
And that's 25 people that are so involved, that come out here and see a music festival that's like this. It's safe and quiet and calm, but it's
and pristine and beautiful. I mean, if you've
right.
seen Minnie
It's
Island's
so
campground,
natural.
It's a gorgeous campground. It's right there on beautiful Spring River, just rolling with waterfalls like right next to it. And yeah, you can't imagine a nicer venue for an event like this.
And the name Juggalo carries a lot of negative connotation on it.
It does.
And people say, oh man, that's going to be a mess.
And that was a hard hill to even cross with the family, because they were worried that things were going to get destroyed or stolen. But after 2 years of having the float and having 50 to 150 juggalos down there that caused absolutely no problems, kept the campground spotless the entire time, and respected that property like it was their own, just because we asked them to.
Right.
It speaks volumes to those guys, and now they look forward to us coming every year. It's like the highlight of their year is having the Juggalos come back.
I can actually see that. I've been in town with Ogre and Risk for a couple days now, and it's like everybody just loves them, and they welcome. Everybody's friendly around here, which is just not how I see it over there on the western side of Arkansas where I'm at. You say Juggalos, it's like, oh yeah, filthy animals.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Well, it's definitely not.
They're not wrong.
Luckily, we had Shaggy 2 Dope and Keegan the Creep. They came twice to the ranch and filmed several podcasts or episodes of their show.
Oh yeah.
From here, and just that give everyone some insight of what this area was like and how people treated them, and they treated them like
like they're
loved
human
them.
beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Complete
Respect.
I love Arkansas for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been pretty widespread. So I've got a couple more questions that I definitely want to ask. I probably have a whole list of questions.
Yeah, hit me.
So, through all the years, how long have you been a juggalo?
I would say I wasn't officially a juggalo until probably DCG Con, and that was 2017, the first one. Yeah, because I had finished Into the Echo side. I after working with Live Nation for years, Psychopathic finally reached out to me right when they were about to launch Missing Link, and I helped them with artwork for their packaging for their cover. And right after I finished that, I was working with Bill Dale at the time. Rob Bruce, Jumpsteady, who is a master game designer, asked me to do Into the Echo side with him. And that was 7 months of work where I just worked with this guy every day, developing over 300 cards for this game.
And you're the guy drawing all the cards, and
card,
doing the art,
the boards, the cover, everything that had to do with that game, I laid hands on. So that was 7 months to do that.
I'm gonna get you to sign my box out in my truck after this.
That sounds good. But
That's awesome.
yeah, we were so proud of it when it was over. He said, "Why don't you I want you on a card," which I was like, "I don't really deserve to be on a card. I'm not a juggalo." And he's like, "Well, I would feel better if you just did it. I think you deserve it." And I'm like, "All right." So he put me on Hocus Pocus. So that's my card on on one of the flavor cards. And then he invited me out to the gathering, and I'm like, I don't know if that's my scene. I don't smoke. I don't have any tattoos. I don't have any piercings. I think I'm going to go out there and they're going to stab me. And he's like, no, they're going to love you. Trust me. You've done so much for this community. I think they would love the opportunity just to thank you for it.
You're actually about to find a whole group of people that actually appreciate your art.
Yeah.
In a way you didn't even know.
And so when I got out there, it was like, holy shit, these people are amazing. I mean, and instead of thinking that they were gang members, I kind of come to the conclusion that they're just normal people, maybe a little on the hippie side, but with a little urban flavor mixed in there, and a big affinity for horror movies. And that's what kind of makes up a juggalo. And once you realize that they're not, it's just a horror movie song that they like, and they are not subscribing to,
Right.
dismembering people and like on Lawnmower Man, that you start to realize that these are really sweet people, and they've treated me like gold ever since. And that was in 2016, my first gathering, which was what the hell was the name of that gathering?
Sounds like a really good gathering.
It was Wizard of the Hood. Wizard of the Hood was the what I did for the program cover that year. And then ever since that year, I didn't get to meet a lot of juggalos because I was just shy, and I stayed in the merch tent, and I was practicing gaming with a lot of people. But at DCG Con, they invited me to come to that, and that was a whole different vibe at DCG Con, where I got to actually meet people. I got to meet Ogre and a lot of other guys, Scotty D, and a lot of juggalos in the community that had been supporting me for years that I didn't know about. So I would say that was my first, when I started considering myself a juggalo.
Hell yeah, man. So 2016. So you're 6 years in as a juggalo.
Mm-hmm.
You go to every gathering since.
I've been to every gathering since.
No plan to stop.
Now, well, after the first one, Rob said, well, I'm not going to pay for you to come, but if you want a booth, if you want to design our logos every year, I'll trade with you. We'll give you this booth. You can come. We'll hook you up with a hotel, and you can come out and,
So you
gather with us.
You gather and go to a hotel at the end of it?
Yes. I do, because, I'm not 22. And so I did that for years, and then even last year, Steve Trickle, who owns Legend Valley, he's got this amazing barn that's right there on the property. So I don't even go to a hotel anymore. I just walk back, behind stage, and they've got this barn where they put us. So
that's your spot.
That's my spot.
So, man, you've got it figured out at the gathering and the float. So, out of the year, how many other music events would you say that you go to? And I don't know if I would call the gathering a music event.
Yeah, I would say that it's kind of musical. But anytime that there's, I try to support all the local people, especially like Risk and Charlie P or Lots and those guys. If they're having a show, whether it's in Memphis or in Springfield, I'll go to those shows.
Yeah, I've accidentally tripped across you a couple of times at random Risk shows.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how does Tom Wood just show up to a Risk show, man?
Well, yeah, I've known these guys a long time, and they're solid friends, and they've been there for me every time. In fact, I started noticing even a few years ago that I would be at the gathering or at one of the parties after the gathering, or at Juggalo Day or something like that, and Ogre wouldn't be too far away, just because he's keeping an eye on me, making sure nothing happens to me, and or I don't get myself in too much trouble, which is I've been known to do that as well.
I've heard some random stories out there.
Yeah, he can't control everything. He tries to watch out for me, but sometimes
we had a conversation last night at a picnic table, and it was talking about something about spitting in a butthole.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of famous for that now.
And now I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask the question, but you allowed to describe in detail as much as you want. I'll get the video clip from Ogre later.
All right, yeah, you can. Be sure to throw the video clip in there because it was literally. I think we were in.
I'm gonna get a paid padlock on it. That way, get you
nice.
some income in.
We were in Tucson, Arizona. It was Juggalo weekend, and it was after the first night of it, and I think it was Tucson. But anyway, the hotel, the epicenter where the Juggalos was this hotel that had this walk around porch on it, and you would just go from door to door where all these room parties were. Well, I was on the second floor, and I was standing outside. And one trick that I do to not be stupid at these things is, once I have a few beers, I can see myself getting tipsy. I'll put a dip of tobacco in or something like that, just to force me to stop drinking for a little bit. So I was spitting off the balcony, and the one guy looks up and says, "Hey, you almost hit me." And then he says, "Hey, that's Tom Wood." And his buddy said, "You should just let him spit on you." And that directly rolled into, "You should just let him spit in your ass." And I'm like, what is even going on? What is this conversation going on?
0 to 90 immediately.
Of course, I had this group of people. Scotty D and was there, and Ogre was there, and Mankini was there.
Mankini and Diddy. He was the driver.
Well, so was Jimmy, and all these guys were like, "Yeah, you could do it, Tom. Do it." I mean, how often does people offer for you to spit in their ass? And also, this was a good distance away.
Better question: how often do people ask you to spit in their ass?
Well, more often now, because it was all about the accuracy. Because this kid wasn't just like straight down. I had to position myself and spit. This was like a big drop, and he was out past the hedges. So he drops down, pulls his pants down, sticks his ass up in the air like a dog in heat, and the guys are, the whole fucking hotel had stopped to watch what was going on.
Yeah, this is a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I can't bitch out at this point. I had to do it. So anyway, I spit out, and it dropped down, and it like, and I wish I had something to show ass cheeks. But anyway, it got like, this is what, like hit on this bun right here. Yeah. And it was really close at the distance it was at. And everybody just went crazy. And, but he stayed down there, and I was like, I think I could beat that. I think I could beat it. That was my first practice spit.
First practice spit, you nailed him on the ass cheek. Most people would just call that a win.
Yeah, they would have called that a win.
Hacks more to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to work that in, and then the second spit, I'd gauged the wind and everything, and it was just this fucking perfect direct hit right on his asshole from a good 30 feet away, at night.
With arc, wind, whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and that's when the legend was born.
That's not when Tom Wood, the legend, was born,
no,
but that's the butthole spitting legend was born.
Of course.
So how many buttholes have you spit on since?
None. Although I've been asked to by hundreds, and yeah, and depending on how gross I think that butthole's going to be, I might consider it. But at the time, I didn't realize there was 6 or 7 cameras from different angles taping all of this, and of course it went viral. And by the next 24 hours later, it was, everybody had seen it. Even ICP had seen it and was.
They were proud.
They were proud.
They were proud.
I'd walked up to the after the event, the after party. I went up to talk to Violent J, and Ouija Mac was sitting there, and they were just shaking their head and saying, "Dude, you are a fucking legend." And I was like, "Oh, I guess it's all going to work out," because I thought, I wasn't sure how it would be received.
Well, it's nice to always be on the spitting end of that game.
It's a shame that the guy taking the spit.
He's not the legend.
He's not.
He's not the legend.
Yeah, he should have some legend.
And he's got some legend squished in between his cheeks.
But he has but you don't recognize him on the string. Like, that's the guy Tom spit in his ass.
Right. I'd have to see a brown stain of chew down the side of his cheek for me to realize that this is the man.
Yeah, you need to do like a comprehensive search for this guy and find him and have him on the show.
You know how hard it is to find juggalos. I don't realize if you know this. Like, these guys hide.
Do they?
Hide. Juggalos hide. It's like they don't give a fuck about anybody and they don't want to be around anybody. I've went to a Ouija Mac show just like last weekend, I guess it was Tuesday. We would seen him in Tulsa and I seen him in Springfield on Sunday. Tried to convince Ogre to walk into the building. He's fucking weird. He sat outside and chain smoked the whole time.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
Never stepped foot in the place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the Juggalo community is like whenever I can find a person that's gonna come that has a bigger name, and you can just see people that come out of nowhere. And it's like, how did y'all even hear about this show? They don't have Facebook. They don't have Instagram. You can't. It's like it's somebody writing you letters out in the middle of the frickin' cornfields to tell you that Ouija Mac's coming to town or something. Like,
they find a way.
Dude, they're amazing at it. It's like I was thinking the gathering wasn't going to happen this year because it's like there's just no notice. There was no flyers. There's no info drops. And then all of a sudden, everyone's going to the gathering.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest fucking thing in the world.
Yep.
So.
Well, after last year's, or maybe it was the year before, I think they had the meeting where Joe had told him about his heart issues and stuff like that. So I think that made everybody realize that nothing is forever. So you better take advantage of it while you can.
Absolutely. So I want to take a little break real quick, man. Get a drink of water and smoke a cigarette, guys. We're going to find a couple of cool-ass underground songs, probably a Risk song because he's fucking here. I'm going to get a couple of clips of other guys here, some B-roll footage, but we'll be right back here at Rockstar Radio, man.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm Tom Wood and Rockstar Radio. Check it out. If you want to see any more of my artwork, go to tomwoodfantasyart.com. You can see my entire library of ICP and fantasy artwork, or you can see my professional stuff like the stuff for Michael Jordan that we talked about today at meridiandesignworks.com. Be sure to go to tomwoodfloat.com if you're interested in joining us this year at the float. It's going to be off the hook tonight, this year. We've got Shaggy Two Dope, we've got Kung Fu Vampire, Light, Risk. Everybody's going to be there. It's going to be crazy. Join us.
Rockstar Radio.